Okay, here we are. We are here live for the next episode of Spiritual Fertility. I am your host, Alison Buckland, and I have such a wonderful, beautiful, talented, special soul sister with me and friend, Falguni Katira. I will introduce her in a second, but before we get started, I would like to share the intention that we have come up with for this episode. And it is really to bring out the spirit of true personal connections and connecting human to human, but also soul to soul, and having that come through. The other intention, and we'll talk about this in a moment, that we want to bring through is all about standing in your personal power. And I know my guest can speak to that in her evolutionary journey. And a little background, we met also on LinkedIn. Many of the guests on Spiritual Fertility will be from the beautiful, soulful connections that have come through that social platform. But we met over 5 years ago through a mutual friend. And when we connected, it was an immediate sisterhood connection. We share some commonalities with regards to fertility journey and spiritual journey. So I know that this is going to be action packed with beautiful, heartfelt conversation. And so, Falguni, welcome here. Tell our listeners just a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into sharing a little bit more about your evolution and your story.
Thank you, Alison. It's wonderful to be here, and it's wonderful to meet all your guests through this beautiful podcast that you've created. I've heard that you've had really soulful connections on this one and conversations, and I'm happy to be part of this. So, thank you so much for inviting me. And it's always good to see you and to talk to you. Uh, Time just ceases to stop when we connect again, because it's like we just spoke yesterday, even though that yesterday was 2 years ago. But it feels
Right.
really good. And thank you for having me. I am a personal power coach, and I love to help women all around the world step into their power and claim the seat at the table that we think we deserve but don't have the courage to ask. So I help women do exactly that. And that goes back to the story of my own life, and to your point, my own evolutionary journey that has helped me to really see that for myself. And now I help people claim the seat for themselves as well.
Yes, yes, yes. And what a journey that I've been able to see in you, that we've been able to see in each other for
Sure.
sure. And so let's start. I mean, which really connected us together. You are a mother, and part of what spiritual fertility is about is sharing with listeners not only the joys of being a mother and what that means, because that connects us all with that energy, but the journey that it takes to get there. And you and I share some similarities in that journey. So, if you wouldn't mind sharing just a little bit about your journey to motherhood.
Yeah, absolutely. Being a mother is definitely one of the greatest joys of being a female, like to have that kind of an ability. God blessed us with that ability to be able to be a medium through which, we can bring a life into this world. It's a huge responsibility, as much of a beauty it is, right? So I was back, now it's 10 years ago now. It seems amazing to even say that. But I mean, jokes apart, if we were to talk 12 years ago, I would have been talking to you very, very differently, with a very different state of energy, just because at that point I was just yearning to be a mother, to be that person that could potentially bring a life into this world, and really be that medium. And often motherhood is related with and culturally, many many times, especially in my culture, it was related to being complete. It was related to being, like of use of something that has been like, that is the purpose of your life, is to give
Mm,
birth. It culturally also brings down to that kind of worth. So it was for me more than a pure willing, which I now understand. The beauty and the power of bringing a life into this world is something very spiritual process in and of itself, definitely. But at that time, 12 years ago, it wasn't that. It was like checking the box and really
mm,
unknowingly wanting to feel complete of what, like, it was very unclear at that moment. But as you know, but I would like to share with the listeners that it was not a very easy journey. It was the one that was a very bumpy road for me. I had to go through 5 pregnancies to have 2 kids.
mm,
And every possible things that could go wrong in a pregnancy, I have probably experienced all of them, right from ectopic pregnancy to having like a premature delivery to having like a deformity in the baby, so many things.
whew,
And then being bedridden for my firstborn for 3 months, just being on the bed, just so that I could keep him intact and keep him safe. And that itself brought in a lot of, the whole journey brought in a lot of humility and a lot of understanding of what life is and what this responsibility brings forth, and how it is making me complete, the whole journey. So it was a beautiful experience. And I think that because of the trouble that we have faced during our pregnancies, and that journey, the whole fertility journey, I think we respect and value motherhood that much more. And I
mm,
think that I have been able to then distill that love and that much of responsibility into my kids. I have 2 boys, so it's important for me to let them know, what this means, what our relationship means, the me and the child, obviously, but also like how much of this has been like a journey of the self, and how much of this has been like a journey that has brought me into not only completeness but also like humility and also power at the same time. It's a very interesting paradoxical experience, when we are getting into this kind of a phase. And it was a growth of a life inside of us, but a growth of ourselves as well while we are like going through that whole experience. Is It's amazing. So
right. And we just do it. Like I
yes.
can relate to, and I think people will relate too, not just through your culture, but in as a woman, as a child, like you almost want to, you mentioned it, check the box. Like you think you will find worth because you're supposed to be a mother, and not everyone is supposed to be a mother, and that's okay. But when you
Exactly.
start on the journey and you're like, okay, like this is going to bring me worth, not knowing what the path ahead is, but we just do it because like we feel something inside, we're being guided towards doing it. What we think maybe is external, but really is that internal like love and drive. And I would a million times agree with you that when you go through a fertility journey and you experience miscarriage or having to use fertility or having it to take multiple times and being pregnant but not birthing that child, and then you birth your child and bed rest too. I can definitely align. I was 7 weeks myself on bed rest in the hospital, which is crazy, but we do it because that's the human that's growing inside of us, and that is being motherly
Yeah.
before we have even birthed that child. But we do that, and then you just have so much just more. And it's not comparing the experience, but it's just that love. And that when you go through that, you just appreciate it and are grateful for every single second
Yes.
that you have. And thank you for sharing like that journey. And I know in that path too, being a mom, now you're a mom, and you have always been a working mom too,
Yeah.
and have also been, I know from you, being a personal power coach you didn't always have the personal power
Oh,
yourself.
no, definitely not. Definitely not. Yes. Oh, Alison. So I was going to say that, when we started, when I was wanting to, the pregnancy journey started with wanting to check the box, honestly speaking, right? Because I didn't know the whole responsibility and the power part of the whole pregnancy aspect of things. I just knew that I will gain a sense of self-worth. I'll feel more complete because that's what I've been culturally conditioned to believe, that, that this is all that it will happen. But especially the time when I was in that hospital all alone on the bed, wanting to be just safe for the kid and wanting the kid to be safe. And, all of that really brought in that time. It gave me the time with the baby to bond and to really, with myself as well in the journey, to really understand what is all this about and why are we doing this, because it was not 1 or 2 days, it was months. And to really spend that time, I feel is, and I could see that in my child even today, that time, it was such a fertile, rich time to be able to have that conversation, to be able to talk. I think it was a blessing in disguise, and it's always like that. We only understand life backwards, and now when I see it, I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. I think that I was a chosen one to have that kind of a special experience, where, to your point, I was a working woman. I wouldn't have paid a lot of attention if I was in fact working, which is what I had at that point thought was a normal thing, and what happened to me was abnormal. But now I feel like there was a blessing in that abnormality, where, that experience brought me to the understanding of where I am today with my motherhood. And that's so special and so important, because it is not just that aspect of life that changed everything for me. I became a mother, obviously, in the process, but for me as a person, the growth that I experienced changed the whole dynamic of my life. And even today, it's a result of where I am. So I birthed myself in a way, like, as a mother, we obviously, are birthing also. So it's my son also was born, and I was also born in many ways, which I think is a very, very powerful experience. And that only happened because of that 3 months in the hospital by myself. So I am very grateful for that experience. And besides that, the whole personal power thing that we are talking about, Alison, I didn't know what that really meant. Again, coming from a culture that really does not, that really merits you for being quiet, for being, like, under the radar, for not really, talking too loud or expressing yourself in a way that could be, like, ruffling the feathers, like, with others or something like that. It
Right.
was very important to be very quiet and nice, and that was rewarded. Being quiet and not giving it back was rewarded, right? So growing up from that, in that way, and it was all coming out of really good intent, by the way, it was all coming out from really good place. But the life has changed, and we have to change in ways that are responding to life in the current, scenario where we are living, instead of the, because there were different humans at that time, and this is a different set of humans, different set of mindsets, mentalities. The whole environment is very different, so to be able to respond to that in a newer way was very much required, and I didn't understand that until I was, faced with challenges that forced me to now think differently, to not, like, just go with what the norm is, because whatever was happening was out of the norm, and I knew that in my brain. And I'm so glad that there was this inner voice. And to your point, like, because we are spiritually, like, aware, we are listening at least to what's being told to us. And they say that the message is going to get stronger and stronger if you don't hear it the first time. So
Right.
this happened multiple times, wherein I was just not stepping into my power, not really able to speak up for myself, express. I didn't even know what I wanted. What will I speak? You know what I mean? Because I'd never given it a thought. So to be able to come to the realization that, I have my worth outside of me being a mother, being a wife, being a whatever. I have personal worth, like that itself, that self-worth part was a very big piece that I didn't know that I was missing until I realized I was.
Mm-hmm.
And then from that, because all of this have ripple effects to who we are as a mother. To bring it back to motherhood, Alison, we can only, this is a huge responsibility for us, when we are awarded that. It's not just checking the box, it's far from that. It is
Sure.
a lot more things. And for that, we being ready for the child, because the day the child is born, there is a role model for the child already being born, which is us. Like they will look up to us for anything and everything, and whether we speak it verbally or not, they are going to catch up on all the cues, and they're going to build their inner, like voice, and they're going to really understand everything that is even not being said just from our behavior.
Sure.
And for me, that was like a biggest, like eye opener. I was like, do I want to consciously, because we have gone through the journey of the troubled, like pregnancy. Did I go through all of this for this, is the question I ask. And so that forces me to be the person that I want to be, because I'm now consciously a role model for my child, and I want to be making sure that they feel powerful, they feel they have a lot of sense of self-worth. They have the all the other beautiful things, such as humility and courage and all of that, but also definitely a way to express themselves. They should be felt, seen, heard, and loved. And I think that is the first thing that we need to offer our child, that space where they can feel that they are that way. And so that was like, it all became very conscious for me, Alison. I had to become the conscious parent. And for that, I had to come to terms with myself first, because it starts with us. So
Sure.
that whole journey is so interconnected, of the child being born and me being born in a way with
Mhm.
the child, because it was very, very important for me to remember that I have not gone through all of this for this. So, and that is my mantra even till today. I remember, because there are times when we go through things, and when we are like, I don't want to fight anymore, I don't want to say that. It will create a lot of turbulence. Let's just keep things going, let's just not rock the boat. When it comes to relationships, when it even comes to talking about friendships, or interpersonal relationships with the husband, with the parents, with the in-laws, it shows up in every place. So to be able to speak up, and very nicely, like not really with the intention of rocking the boat, but with the intention of expressing ourselves truly, so that we can be at peace. And to be able to step into that power, because once we come from a place of love and power, it is going to be understood exactly as that, but we need to come from that deeper place first. So
Sure.
as I started to understand that it's not rocking the boat, it's just expressing myself.
Yes.
And I have the permission to do that. And that it is not going to create no problem. In fact, it will open up more gates, because now everybody, once we give ourselves the permission to express ourselves, we are also automatically giving the other person the same permissions, and it just
Sure.
opens up this beautiful relationship, like gate that was not there before. That was. And so it has helped me foster so much more deeper connections with my own husband, with my own parents, with my own in-laws. And all of this started from the journey of being a conscious, wanting to be a conscious mother, or wanting to be a
Yes.
conscious parent. So
Oh,
yeah.
I can relate to that so much. And there's, boy, there's a lot to unpack in what you were talking about. The you becoming birthed and that rebirth that occurs when you are a mother. It's like it definitely changes your life forever and just flicks that switch. And I think that too in life we are on an evolutionary journey where we are rebirthing multiple times and having these experiences of transformation and evolution as we go through. But in speaking about relationships, it goes back to kind of the intention that we set to come through for those authentic relationships to happen and take place human to human, because we have to not only understand ourselves and step up and say the things we might not want to say and be our authentic selves in spite of the fear, because that's really scary. And as women and as mothers and as just how we've been brought up culturally, societally, programmed, familial and generational, as we've brought up, we
Yeah.
hide,
Yeah.
and we do not shine our light, and we dim our light, and we don't have boundaries.
Mm,
I mean, boundaries was a big word that was coming in when we were talking about
yeah.
relationships, having boundaries with what we let in and what we keep to ourselves, and what we don't share. But we'll continue our conversation in a bit. But I do want to touch on, because something that we've also connected with on in our journey and our friendship is our spiritual journey, and not just the motherhood, but how spirit plays a role in leaving us these breadcrumbs, and in being that voice that comes through, that gives us the courage to kind of take these little steps to follow into our power and into our purpose. And oracle cards certainly have played a role in our relationship, and it's something that I've used in my journey. But before we sat down, we were talking about, oh, let's pull a card. Okay. And so I went and grabbed my Work Your Light Oracle deck from Rebecca Campbell. And the card that I pulled was Don't Dim to Fit In. And the question is, how are you dimming your light in order to fit in? And it really goes back to sharing your light, not dimming your light. And we can do that because of many wounds and things that we're told, internal dialogue, internal self-talk, and what we maybe don't recognize, that's in our subconscious mind, but living in that conscious life and in that conscious lifestyle. Now, talking again about oracle cards, I want to kind of shift into some of the things that have helped you wake up in your journey. And one of those things that comes into mind is, we've conversed on an oracle card reading. I did a reading for you several years ago using cards. And let's talk about that. Let's share what was birthed as a result of that experience, and something that was in your heart that you wanted to birth, but you weren't quite sure about putting it out there because you were dimming yourself a bit. But share with our listeners what you did birth and put out into the world that
Yes.
changed your life.
Yes, oh my gosh, that was a very pivotal moment, and I'm so happy that you were there, and you were kind of the purpose behind, and the push that the gentle nudge from the universe that I needed to, like, yes, go ahead, you are on the path. It was like perfectly orchestrated moment, because I do think that there are many ways that we, to your point, dim our light just because out of fear, out of really not wanting to rock the boat, out of like many cultural, social, generational conditionings. All of those reasons are so true, and they show up in our life in so many ways. So there was this book that I think that was in me, that was wanting to come out, and that was really the whole culmination of the experience that I've had in my life, wherein there was an experience not only related to my fertility, but there was like one wave after the other, like just because I was having this whole trouble with the fertility journey, and then I was having this whole realization of everything else that was disturbed in my personal life, in my marriage. My marriage was going through a really challenging time, because there was a sense of disconnection between me and my husband, and that led him to have friends outside, and it was like a really big disturbance that really rocked our boat in a way where now I had to make like life decisions, like, what do I want to do from here on? I have just birthed these two kids out of after the whole problematic like experiences that we've had with pregnancies, and then we've just had realized the wish that we had, like, now we have the two kids that we've always wanted, and by God's grace they're all healthy and nice. And just when that part of life was over, like, or was settled, sorry, then I realized that there is another storm waiting, and there was this storm. And to then be able to brace that storm the way I could, in the best understanding and with the best arsenal that I had within me at that point, be it the spiritual power, which of course played a huge role in being who I was, and in also like realizing that I do have, again, the personal power comes from there, the whole conversation around that I was invisible into this whole relationship before. Like I was just like wanting to be so, like good, that I forgot that no sense of boundary, no sense of self, no sense of anything, because it was like, the one who merges well is the one who is nice and right, is, what was understood before and what I lived my life by. So to then gain a sense of self and to understand that, excuse me, there are two in this equation and not one, was a big awakening in and of itself, right? So that required me to face the mirror like never before, to really like understand and look at me like I had not seen myself before, and it's not somebody else's wife or somebody else's daughter or somebody else's mother. Now it was me, the raw naked me. And that was an interesting and a very pivotal change and shift in my entire being, Alison. And at that point, by the time we spoke about the book, coming back to that, it was like a journey that I'd already been. And I felt, again, I'm going to use this analogy because there's no other way I can express it better. I was feeling pregnant and like, really, really fully baked with all of these experiences that have helped me look at life very differently, helped me change and step into my power like nothing else before. So for me, it was very, very important. Like, when you are pregnant and the baby, you're like 9 months and you want to now deliver it, it was that kind of an urgency. And I was not getting the nudge to just share this out because of all the fears and all of those things that were still pulling me back. Like, no, but wait, why do you want to go out to the world, and why do you want to come out, and why do you want to say these things, and it's all over and it's all okay. And so there were many, many things that were playing, and I was coming in my own way more than anybody else, just because I was like, no, I don't want to, and things like that. But then we had this conversation, and you pulled the oracle cards out, and you had something exactly about creativity and giving birth to the idea and things like that, which was so spot on hit. And I was like, this is nature telling me to just go for it. And you, I don't know if you remember, but you said that, you are creating something, just go for it. And then I shared with you about the book, and you're like, exactly, then that's what it is, just go with it. And so that was
Mm-hmm.
just the nudge I needed, my friend. And that was, and we now know that I have this book out, and it just feels so amazing. Now, up until then, by the way, Alison, up until the book was released, my parents didn't know about it, about the whole
Mm.
experience. Obviously, nobody else knew except for a few friends of mine, right? Nobody else knew. So it was a courageous thing for me to actually put it out there. And book is forever, it is forever, right? So for
Sure.
me to really put it out there was a huge thing that really changed the whole trajectory of my life and of my relationship with my husband, because we are still married. We are having a rocking relationship like never ever before, because now he understands me so much better. Now we
Sure.
have this communication that we've never had before, and he's so proud of me to have released that book and to overcome my own fears. I think, he, again, looking back, Alison, my life, and I come from a very, very humble place, and it makes me a little bit emotional. But the point being that the whole journey, whatever I thought was trials and tribulations at the time, are the biggest reasons of my celebration today. Like they were actually celebratory moments, but at that time I didn't see them as such, obviously, because I was, deep underneath. But now when I look back, those were all the times when God was shining upon me and was really trying to, help me shine so that I can then do my life's purpose. And we've spoken about soul contracts and about the work that we have come here to do. And it takes back to our spiritual conversations that we've had. And it's so true. Today it is really, I mean, I know it in my bone that it is my life's work to share with people and help them and share this medicine. Because now when you go through something and you've grown from that, it just becomes a medicine that you need to share, because there are so many others that are probably going through the same situation, and they need to grow from that, and your medicine can help them do just that. So it's become my life purpose, and it's something I really take a lot of pride in, that the thank you God for really taking me through those issues, and for giving me the vision and the understanding that that is what that was, and it is not a sob story but a victory story. And to then really be sharing that with others is something I don't take lightly at all. And I am really, really grateful for the conversations that we can have like this, where we can talk about all of this so openly, and not dimming the light, but in fact shining light on the trials and on those journeys that were very pivotal in shaping our lives the way we are. And it's all coming back full circle, my friend. Just because of all of this, I've become a better person, because of which I've become a better mother, because of which my kids are now becoming that much more conscious and better individuals themselves. So it's all a beautiful, beautiful ripple effect. The only thing is we get to see it the way we want to see things. And it's only by God's grace that we see the things in a positive light, rather than thinking glass half full or why me, and that thing. So
Right, right. Wow. Yes. I mean, you have to have that, and you have it, that inner pull and guidance the more you looked within and had it. And having your, I like what you shared about being, having your story be your medicine. I also love, that I've heard before, your best be your message. Those things we go through, the only way is through,
yeah.
and we can go through them and we can create a better, I mean, we just guided on our path. It's really just aligning with the path that we're meant to share, and the purpose that we're meant to share and give and share with others, in bringing that message and that personal power out. And you're an inspiration for others who are going to listen to this and be like, oh, and where am I dimming my light? Where can I find that power to speak up, or to birth that creation, and to share that thing that's on my heart? This podcast for me is one of those things that has been on my heart, that is like, oh, okay, right, oh, putting myself out there, it's going out there, but and sharing my story, and holding space for others to share their story in what they want to bring out. It's birthing something that's out there, and I took that nudge to put it out there. One thing I do want to touch on before we wrap it up, and when we were talking beforehand, it was an experience that I asked you if you would be willing to share. And I love when, and we'll get into what that experience is, but what you shared after you said, okay, yes, we're going to share everything. But it was how you mentioned how prior to this journey, this spiritual awakening, this evolutionary journey, this coming into your power, and having the boundaries and all of the things, and no longer dimming your light, but how you compartmentalized your life, and you kept hidden certain things, or you kept separate, and hiding those things in the relationship with your husband from others, and what are they going to think, and also was ringing true. I'm a recovering people pleaser as well, so we connect on that. But talking about where you were led, that really opened you up, and how you took a solo trip into the jungle to experience plant medicine. Would
Yeah.
you share a little bit about that journey, and for our listeners who that may be something that has tugged on their heart in their journey as well?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So I was, some of these things, on the spiritual path, we know that there are callings, and there are things that are like, I think divine has its own way of nudging us, and of telling us, and of pulling us. There are multiple things. If we are aware and conscious enough, we do hear those calls, and we do hear the nudges, and we do feel them. And so for me, for me, there's only one litmus test, Alison. If it is effortless, right, yet profound, that means it was meant to be. right? And so
Hmm.
for me to be able to take a to be able to gather the courage, first of all, to take a solo trip, which I've never done, into a foreign country without knowing anybody there in itself, like, if you were to tell me prior to this trip that, oh, you got to do this, I would be like, you're crazy. I'm not
Right.
able to gather the courage to do all of that by myself first before I could even share it with my husband or anybody, to wrap that thing around in my own head that, listen, that's what you're going to go. And by the way, so the plant medicine that I went for was ayahuasca, and I didn't know anything about it. I couldn't even spell it, for heaven's sake. Like, I didn't know anything, right? And so for me to be able to trust the nudges and to be able to respond to the calling. I love how your cat appears exactly. It's just so beautiful.
My
Uh,
cat is jumped up on my lap as we're talking
yes,
here.
so that's so cute. So I felt called for that. And Alison, when I say it has to be effortless and fitting naturally, there was a series of yeses that followed.
Hmm.
Speaking at my office and taking leaves that I wanted abrupt suddenly because I decided one fine day that I want to go. So taking those leaves, to aligning my work at office according to a way where I can actually take that 1 week off and be literally shut down, like be unreachable and shut down, was a huge thing. Like, taking that 1 week. So that aligned. Talking to my husband, talking to my kids, making sure that they are going to be all okay and situated and all of that, everything aligned in a way which was so effortless. So it was natural for me that, okay, this is somewhere I need to be, because this is why all the cards are fitting
Hmm.
well. And so I found myself there. And what a rewarding experience that was. Like, when you respond to nature, it starts speaking out loudly to you, just because you responded. It was a very life altering experience, because for me, right from the beginning of the trip, even before having the medicine, it had started working on me, just because it helped me gather the courage to actually go for something like this. Totally unknown, totally not knowing whom I'm going to meet and what I'm going to do. To have a room full of friends by the last day was an experience in and of itself that was so good. And then to have opened up in ways which I had never even known that I could, in terms of being with the medicine, allowing it to, like, work on me, work through me. And it is so powerful and intense, Alison, that I feel, and there are many, many times when I still associate some of my current experiences in life with the medicine and what it was trying to tell me
Uh-huh.
at the time. And for me to unreel and relate and like have those ahas, it's been 2 years since, but I still have those moments, and it's just very,
Wow.
very rewarding. Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, yeah. It was it the thing with the medicine is, you trust it and you allow it, and then it takes over.
Hmm.
Takes over.
Wow. Yes, it's so fascinating. And I remember talking about your experience with ayahuasca and how you were led there. And I was like, knowing you at the time, I was like, you did what? Wait a second. Like, you by yourself? Wait, like, tell me about this. Back up here a second, because it was just not how I had known Falguni
Yes. Yes.
before. And thank you for sharing that, because that may be something that tugs on others' hearts to, as a nudge to go towards. And it really comes back to listening to those whispers and understanding your intuition and following the nudges and being conscious, because there's a lot of fog and clutter that can be in our lives based on many things that we think we're supposed to do, or that we've been taught, that we've learned, that program that exist in our subconscious mind. But once we start to open up and like have the courage to make each choice to move forward and follow those nudges, it's almost like the path continues to open up and unfold for us, and you're in a completely different space doing what you love now. So, in wrapping up, share what you're doing now, because you are a full-time personal power coach, and I know you volunteer your time as well. So, share a little bit about who you work with and what you do, and how anyone who's listening might want to connect with you moving forward.
Absolutely. Thank you. So, following up with all of my callings and listening and responding to all of that, and then stepping into my power, which I continue to do. I'm a student of everything that I preach, so it's like just, I've done whatever I have done in life, and then it's my duty to share that while I keep learning and keep growing, and therefore eventually pass it down as well. So I am a personal power coach. I help people step into their power, much so much so that, especially for the females, like I do work with males as well, but females like tend to resonate with my story and my life a lot more. So I definitely work with them a whole lot, and I offer like one-on-one and group coaching to individuals that are interested in stepping into their personal power, and therefore improving their relationships, their careers, and their motherhood journeys, right? So I help people with all of that. I can be reached on any social platforms or on my website. Very much out there. They can search Falguni Katira and they can find me on all of the major social platforms, as well as my website, falgunikatira.com. But I would love to talk to people that are driven and that are interested, really, to kind of take back charge of their own life and not live in, like the defense side of things, but start playing in the offense and start taking things, in control. So that's what I do.
Awesome. And it's so just magical and beautiful to connect with you and to just see where you are today. And I know that those that you work with, and even just not even working, just sharing your story and the inspiration and the tools that you've used in your journey with our listeners, that energy comes through. And so it's almost like an activation for those that will listen to this moving forward. And I'm just so grateful for you. One thing before we go, what's maybe just one tool that you kind of rely on that has been really a game changer for you, or a tool that you maybe recommend to others that has helped you in your journey that you might want to recommend to anybody who's listening here?
Absolutely. I want to share with your listeners a very, very powerful technique that has helped me stay centered. And I do think that we often struggle with that, because there are times when we remember our power and then we try, tend to like move away from that. So for me, the technique that has really helped me, and I'm sure will help the listeners, is the technique called anchoring. So when
Mm,
we anchor ourselves, when we find associations, so where anytime, for example, what I mean by that is, for an example, every time you are in a very emotionally rich state, meaning you're feeling very powerful or very happy or very joyous, whatever the positive emotion that you are experiencing, immediately tapping into that emotional state and really associating it with, like one of the fingers, knuckles, or anything else. Like, for me, I make associations everywhere now, just so that all of those things serve as reminders for me to be in that state, to go back to that time when I was feeling that
right.
powerful or that courageous. So for me, so for example, I'll share this with you because it will be interesting for the listeners. So every time I was in the ayahuasca ceremonies, there were 4 nights. Alison, of course have strong, associations that I have built in terms of my spirit animal and the medicine, like the place
Mhm.
and the medicine, like many, many associations like that. So anytime I think
Mhm.
about it, I'm already immediately brought back that energy
Right.
to that place. But also about, like the clothes that I was wearing, I have kept them separate, just because anytime I feel dim, I go and bring it on, and
Mm.
I'm like again back to, in that space. And the
Wow.
power of associations and that anchoring is so strong that it immediately takes you to that state. Like when we talk about this, we don't know, but this is a matter of self hypnosis, Alison. When we talk about the journey that we have had, when we talk about a sad incident, for example, we are going back to that event and then recollecting and sharing. So when we make associations with a positive thing, or like for example, the whole journey that we spoke about in terms of fertility, I have associated all of that with the victory that I'm experiencing today from all of that. So it becomes a joyful journey rather than a sob story. So the power of associations, of making sure that you're wiring it correctly in your brain, because there are wires, it's there, everything is wired. I just want to make sure the socket is in the right place, so that thing happened. But where does it lead to? It leads to the beautiful, the powerful experience that I've then had, right? So understanding how we make those associations is very powerful. So I would encourage the listeners to start, anchoring their positive states to a thing or any part of their body, just so that they can tap on it and register that, so that that association is made. So when I click on this knuckle, for example, I'm immediately brought back to the powerful or the happy state, and you will start seeing that you will giggle, because your body remembers. Your body will make connections and it will remember. So every time, make sure that it is accessible. So, like back of the ear or on the knuckle, just make sure that you stack those states, states meaning the happy emotional states, the powerful states, and make sure that you keep on stacking. So right now I'm feeling very joyful when I'm talking to you. I genuinely am. I am anchoring. I am, like tapping in,
Mm.
because I want to ensure that that powers me up. It's like, an energizer.
Right. Yeah,
Every time
that's
you
great.
do that, it is very, very powerful. So I do that all the time. I teach that to the kids. I teach this to everybody I go, because I think that once we get those wirings correct, many things will start falling into place. So
Thank you so much for sharing that. The anchoring, that is wonderful. I'm going to be conscious about that now. But you're right about just the reframing and just reassigning the emotion that is attached to the experience and just putting it into a light that now it's not doom and gloom and poor me and I went through this. It's wow, I
ah,
rebirthed myself and have this gift of an experience
yeah,
that is now a lesson to give me that higher state of consciousness and evolution. And thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate and am grateful for you and our friendship, and for you sharing all of the light that you have through this medium, through this platform, to reach others, and for coming on and sharing with me. It is definitely a soul contract, a soul connection that we have, which we've talked about many times. And it's somebody that time can go on like years since we've connected, and we just kind of connect right back into what we were meant to do and what we were meant to share, and together we shine our light to illuminate more of the world. So I appreciate you so very much. And to all of our listeners, I'll be sure to gather Falguni's information and share it in the show notes so that you can connect with her and follow her on the platforms. And I would like to ask our listeners to make sure to follow our podcast, subscribe to Spiritual Fertility, and review our show. Share it with listeners who you think might relate, so that we can activate more of our friends and light workers that are paving the way for all of the collective to shine their lights and just make this world a lot brighter. Thank you for coming on again, Falguni, and I will talk to you soon.
thank you.